Welcome back, everybody. This is your Captain Mog speaking, and we are playing some more Kerbal Space Program this week, going into episode 11, I'm pretty sure, and we got a few things that we're going to be doing today. We're checking out one of our stations. I believe this is the one around the Mun currently, and if you couldn't tell, this is post-commentary. We're gonna, basically, now that the new version's out, we're still going back and trying to recover a lot of our current missions that were already underway, bringing back our pilots so that they can turn in that experience they've earned on these long missions, and hopefully start taking advantage of the new contracts, taking advantage of the new abilities they can perform once they level up. What you can see here is we're undocking this module from our station, and we're going to be trying to take this thing home. Retrieve all 4 of the people in this station from the from the Minmus station, I'm sorry. So they're coming back, and hopefully nothing goes wrong, though. As you can see, unfortunately, down in our stage there on the bottom left, it looks like the parachutes are already deployed. Now, I tried to pull an engineer out. I couldn't tell who was actually an engineer or not on this, because it doesn't actually show you, at least as far as I'm aware, unless I'm just totally missing. Actually, I wonder if there's the crew thing for the vessel when you go into map mode still. Huh. Hindsight's 2020 and all that. If you guys know how to check that, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear. But I tried to fix the parachutes, or at least repack them, to see if I could get them to deploy. So needless to say, this entire return mission home to Kerbin was a bit terrifying for me. Yeah. So we're coming home. You can see us leaving Minmus here. Bye bye, little turquoise green planet thing. Our huge old oblong orbit here. The moon's gonna pass in front of us as we're coming back, probably a few times. We're out this far. It takes forever to get back in. Come on, one more. Are we gonna cut in there? I think we're actually gaining speed. We might actually cut in before the Mun comes back through. We are gaining speed, as you can see in the orbit down below, yeah, and it's just gonna pick right up as we get in. Now we're probably gonna have to make some burns here. You can see we're dipping into about 65 kilometers off the surface of Kerbin for our periaps here. That's going to put us about 5 kilometers into the atmosphere, which is not really going to be much atmosphere to slow us down. So we're going to probably burn some fuel here on the initial pass while we're in the atmosphere, hopefully bringing in our apoaps quite a bit. So coming on in here, you see our first pass. Firing those engines, you can just watch our friggin' fuel just drop. Now, I'd love to keep some fuel on tap, so I don't know if we're going to try to use it all or what, but we do use quite a bit in these initial pushes to bring our apoaps in. Making some passes. I just rocketed by that one. That freaked me out. We go by this pass about 13 times trying to slow this down and not use much fuel. So every time we go by, we're dipping a little further in because it brings in our apoaps and slows us down. So we spend more time in the atmosphere, even this far up. And that's what we were taking there. So we're at about 56, almost 57 kilometers up still. That's not dipping too far in. You can see us already pulling back out at this time and coming out the other side. Zipping on out. We're not going to fire this time. We're still saving some of that fuel. We definitely got tons of monopropellant left still that we can use to do some of these smaller burns, or at least the ones where we're way out. You can see it's dropped down to about 55 kilometers now on this pass. Coming back in and going out again. Seriously. I spent so long trying to conserve fuel here because I really wanted some fuel for landing. And you can see that right there, our monopropellant fuel level has just dropped. I have been firing monopropellant and still am right here bringing that in. That's what it is currently bringing us in to about 45 kilometers. It's going to dip us a little bit further, but our apoaps is only about 725 kilometers at this point, which will get pulled in even more, down to 130, 160, or 130, sorry, dropping even further. That was my phone going off. That distracted the crap out of me. Apoaps is coming in. This looks like it might be our final pass. And that is dropping. Yes, we are completely in the atmosphere now, and we are going to go in for our final descent. We've still got about, I would say, a third of a tank of fuel for our initial push here. So let's see what happens. We're going to start heating up. We're getting into the lower atmosphere, the thicker stuff. And we are zooming, that is for certain. A little under 2,000 meters a second on surface speed here, and you can just see that heat, and it is definitely heating us up. So I fired a bunch of our fuel here with only just a spurt left. Unfortunately, I think that was a mistake. I was hoping to try to alleviate some of the heat by slowing us down further, but I think that was a mistake in using that fuel at that point. We were going to slow down anyway, and you can definitely see the damage that was done to our parts, but nothing blew up. Everything held together, which is nice. But unfortunately, I can't seem to pull it around. Now the wind, the new aerodynamics in this game, I was not able to bring the ship back around. We're about 5 kilometers above the surface of the ocean at this point, and I cannot right our ship. And unfortunately, I don't think those parachutes are going to deploy. We'll get lucky if they do. Trying to flip it around and maybe position our rocket so we can do a little burst of Delta V canceling out here before we hit. But look at this, I'm just rocking back and forth. I can't get it in. I can't flip it over. I can't get those engines facing the ground. The only thing I can do is speed up our demise, unless those parachutes save us. Almost there at 500. If it doesn't deploy, we're done. And we're done. Smack. Goodbye, you wonderful, brave crew. I'm so sorry I've lost you. I'm so sorry. So, we're going to pick up on another mission here, taking out this. It's got one of my first attempts at fairings on the total payload up there at the top of the rocket. It's a ship that was designed with a claw on the front of it so that we can go recover somebody's debris. And this is actually going to be our first encounter with a female Kerbal in this game. We weren't able to hire any because we had such a large roster already. It was going to cost us more than I even had for our total budget to hire one female Kerbal. But we had a mission, a contract to go recover a female Kerbal and her debris. So we're going to go and try to do that around the little moon of Minimus here. You can see her orbital line real close, and they're very close. About I think it's less than 10 kilometers off the surface of Minimus. So we're going to get this thing nice down there, use up all the fuel in this little tank here before we eject it. Unfortunately, I ejected my fairings at a point where it was in pretty dark view, so you guys don't get to see the cool display of the fairing shooting off here when we eject them. But you will get a quick shot here of the actual payload rocket, the actual ship that we are flying with the claw here momentarily as we get into that orbit and realign ourselves for the rendezvous with Stilette's craft here. It looks like her name is Stilette. Is that accurate? We'll have to double check that when we actually get some a better view of that name. So you can see here we are adjusting our incoming velocity and all that, incoming trajectory. And coming in, and going to be burning for our realignment, putting us into alignment with the other orbit so that we can make the docking procedure very easy. There it is. You can see we are now on pretty level playing field with this guy and about 2 kilometers away, and you can see us start to burn that way. We've dropped our larger rocket backing that put us out here, and the fairings are gone. You can see the front of the ship there with the claw already exposed as we come in below a kilometer here, getting close to about half a kilometer, and very close now. We're going to be not using our engines anymore at this part. Our rockets, after we reposition ourselves and kill our velocity, we are going to be using our monopropellant to bring ourselves in for this docking maneuver, quote-unquote docking maneuver. Yes, this is not docking necessarily. It is technically the same process you would use using your RCS to position you in good alignment with the craft, but we are not docking. We are going to be grabbing this thing with the claw, though it functions quite similarly. We get in close to the claw and it grabs onto anything it touches. Right there. And it looks like Stilette's craft is now part of our craft. She is in the cabin of that machine there, but we're going to go ahead and pull her out on an EVA and put her into the main capsule to make sure that she's a little more safe instead of this busted up old ship. We made a little spot for her on our rocket. We might as well take advantage of it. There she is popping on her lights. We've got our pilot in the tiny little command pod there, and we've got a nice little cupula pod there that we're going to... Oh, I guess, never mind, I've got them backwards. She's jumping into the little pod there. Our main pilot is in the cupula pod, the bigger pod below it, with a better view. So we are going to be putting ourselves into a higher orbit and heading back to Kerb and bringing home Stilette this time, along with our pilot, whose name unfortunately I don't remember. What is it? Shellcott? Is that what I read down there in the bottom right? Shellcott? I can't really read it. It's really blurry on my preview screen, but we are coming in. I planned a little better. We did not deploy our parachutes. We still have those to eject and a smidge of fuel, but we probably won't need that either. What we can do is actually eject even lower to make our ship a little lighter for when we're coming in if we're packing too much weight. If we can get away with it, I want to keep the rest of the craft on here and land with everything that we currently have without detaching so that we save more and recover more basically of our spent resources. If we can get the rest of the ship in there, all the cost for the parts should be saved. And that's the last of our fuel. Bringing it in, we're at about 48 49-ish kilometers up, closer to 48 kilometers up on periapse. That's definitely a bit into the atmosphere. Sooner or later, even without fuel, we will descend into the atmosphere completely. Because every time we dip in, we'll slow it down. Oh, but that is my phone again. Gosh, I should really shut this off when I'm recording audio, shouldn't I? I get way too many texts. In fact, indefinitely put it on priority mode. No more notifications for me. We are dipping into the atmosphere on a pass here. You can see us dropping down a little above 100 kilometers right here still. This is not atmosphere. Atmosphere starts at about 70 kilometers on Kerbin. And flipping that around for a little bit better alignment. We are popping back up though, doing a little aero braking there. You can definitely see it pulled in our apoapse there. And even more this time we're coming back around. Dropping in, we're down to about 40,000 meters up, 4 kilometers up, 40 kilometers up. And you can see that we are now dipping even further, and this looks to be our final descent into the atmosphere. We are not popping back up. We are down to 35, and you can see those heat effects going off there as we burn through this atmosphere at this speed, just under 2,000 meters a second, coming back from orbital velocity and slowing down with all the friction in this thicker atmosphere. Down to about 25 kilometers up and just dropping fast, down to 20 kilometers. And look at that though, with our engine facing the ground and our RCS and SAS keeping everything stable, we didn't actually take any damage. Those engines are meant to absorb heat. That is what they do. And everything else seems to have taken the brunt of that fall with no damage incurred. We've got our parachutes deployed. This, I think, with our 8 parachutes we have on this thing, should be enough to slow this entire object down, especially since it looks like we're coming down over the ocean. About 3 kilometers up. And as we hit closer to 500 meters up, our parachute should deploy and we should land softly in the ocean. And that will hopefully be Stilette joining our crew. Coming down, here's 500. Come on, parachutes. Perfect. We have got our parachutes deployed. And we have slowed down below 7 meters a second, which is going to be, at least for our bigger parts, definitely a soft enough landing to not ruin anything and keep these Kerbals alive, which will be a nice thing to have done. Coming down 200 meters, dropping fast, 150 meters. 100 meters. Here's the last push. The moment of truth. Will they survive? I already know, of course. But you don't for sure. But I'm pretty sure you can guess. We're firing a little bit of that monopropellant off just to lower some weight. And there we go. A nice pop down with our RCS and SAS. It actually keeps this thing facing upwards. So let's go ahead and recover that vessel. And it looks like we pulled in about 45 science. It's something. We've got a new Kerbal and we've got a bunch of stuff back. So look at that. She's even leveled up. She's one of our best pilots now. Engineers. So we have a leveled up engineer. That's going to be definitely a good thing to have on crew. And we're going to go ahead and take up our plane here. I want to try this out. You saw this plane previously. We were doing just some air trials. I'm going to be trying to get this thing up into the atmosphere, seeing how high we can actually get it up with these engines. We've put some rocket engines on there as well as our air breathing engines now. And we've reconfigured the wings a little bit as well as some of the other arrangements. We pushed them forward a little bit and adjusted for the mass. So it's still pretty balanced and takes off really quick with the power that this thing has. You can get this thing up and going real nice and quick. Cruising up, we're pushing up to 200 meters a second already. And that's going to be more than enough to keep this thing airborne. So you can see I've strutted this thing all together to the tail from the outer wings, just to give it a little more structural stability. It definitely gets a little shaky, especially getting up into the lower, thinner atmosphere where it gets a lot easier to spin out if you're not careful and doing deliberate movements. Slow, deliberate movements, I should say. Coming up there, you can see we're at about just over 4,000 meters now, and cruising nice. We're at about 250, or is that 350? I can't even read it, this dang preview window. That looks like 325 to me if I can read it from here. Just resize the screen a smidge. You can see we are going up. We're cruising at about 16, almost 17 kilometers above the surface now, up in some of that lighter atmosphere just before it gets even lighter. And we're going to try to push it up and see how high we can get just running on these air-breathing engines. I wonder if I put more air intakes on this vessel, we may be able to get this thing even a little bit higher. But what you can see is, since we have very little air intake, it's 0.11 at this stage, these engines aren't able to push it quite as fast. We were able to get this thing up to close to 600, 700 meters a second. Right now it's kind of topping out just below 400 at this density. It just doesn't have enough air to push through those engines. the pressure isn't there, so it can't push it out back that fast enough to keep it going fast. So what we're going to do is start dropping this thing back into the atmosphere, regain speed at probably close to 15 kilometers above the surface, and then engage our rocket engines to see how fast we can get this thing moving. This thing is going to be cruising, though, for a while. I just really like this ship. It's super stable, and it actually recovers falls quite well. It's equipped with a lot of parachutes, so even if I go a little bit crazy and lose control, if it gets too close to the ground, I can just deploy all the parachutes, and it lands rather softly. I've had it break apart at the seams, but I've also had it do that and every part survive. You just have to recover them individually, so it's a little bit more of a headache there. If you can get away with it not doing that, it's great, because you just have to do it once, but sometimes you just gotta pick up the pieces, you know? So dropping back down, you can see that the speed is definitely picking up now that we're back down close to the 15-kilometer range. Those engines are red hot pushing out that air in this thicker atmosphere. Getting up over 600, 625, 630, 650. Gonna start tilting this thing up, getting ready to put this thing up to close to a 45-degree angle if we can. And that's when we're going to be engaging our other rockets right there. Looks like we got up to about 30 degrees with those engines. We're going to be pushing both engines for a sec there, and then disabling our air-breathing engines as we get closer, and we'll see how far this will actually get us. These engines are quite small. They're some of the smallest engines you can get in that size range, and they really don't have all that much thrust. What you can see is, yes, we are losing a lot of speed. I've re-engaged our air-breathing engines, and then I second-guessed myself. We're over 20 kilometers. The air is way too thin here. I kind of fear risking just one of them blowing out, just a burnout, and sending us into a side spin. That's not what we want at this type of a height, though. At this type of a height, with as much fuel as we have left, it's probably recoverable if we don't shake apart. But those struts should help. But yes, we're gonna make it. There's our apoaps at about 26. We really aren't pushing into the atmosphere. We're gonna waste too much fuel at this point. We are probably not gonna make it into orbit. We'd need to get 50, almost 55 kilometers higher, and we just don't have the fuel or power to do it. Yeah, we're just not pushing it. We're basically just riding flat along this altitude. So disabling our engines, we're just gonna coast back into the atmosphere nice and slow, and turn this thing around and bring it in for a landing and bring these ones home. We need some more work on this vessel to make it possible to get to orbit with it. It's going to take a while. It's going to need some bigger engines. It'll probably need to be reworked almost completely, is my guess, or at least a lot. So I've also taken some more swings at this since recording this, but you'll see one of those here shortly. We're going to bring this thing in, doing a little bit of fun air acrobatics here now that we're into the thicker atmosphere again and have a little bit better control over things. We're at about 12 kilometers up and flying upside down. I don't know why this is so fun to me, but it's super stable, and if you know how to control it, how the controls flip around when you're upside down, it's actually a lot of fun. We're getting some air effects here, going into sonic boom territory with this thing. That's how fast you can get this thing going. It's only about, is that 800? No, that was 400. I was like, oh my god, that looks like 800 speed. But yeah, like I've mentioned before, my preview window is kind of blurry in this program. I'm using Windows Movie Maker. Feel free to laugh at me for that. I laugh at myself about it still. I have some other programs to use to recording and things like that, but I still need a good one to use the video editing if I can find one sooner or later. We're gonna go for this little island over here, I think. I don't think we're gonna make it back to our actual landing strip. That's fine. We don't have enough fuel, and that's a long ways to go, actually. This island, although not that far away from the original landings from the Space Center, it really is quite a ways in time to even get there. It's just not that far looking at it from a globe. It's coming in for a landing here. We're gonna deploy our brakes, our air brakes. It also makes our wheels brake, so you don't want to be pressing that while you're actually landing, like initially. You want to get in, touch down, let them roll free for a few seconds, and then hit your brakes. That way you're not hitting and just initially just got all that extra friction. Don't want to dip yourself forward. Do it slowly. Hitting those brakes, bringing them in, and what we also get here is the ability to deploy our drogue chutes from our tail, which help a lot in these rough landing situations. So extending those brakes, releasing our parachutes, and you can see that dropped speed super quick. And to a stop. We're going to go ahead and engage those permanently and recover the vessel. We brought them back, gained 14 science. It was something. We took some atmosphere readings, regained our parts almost what is that, 95% of our vessel cost has been returned, so it was almost a free flight. We got some experience on camber, but nobody else got any experience. We're going to try this one more time, a slightly different design, and we're going to be launching it as a rocket instead of from the runway. This is going up with 4 tanks set symmetrically around the rocket, around the spaceplane that is, and using it to launch up into the high atmosphere, seeing if we can get into an orbit from this higher push. Though, it'll be interesting. This is not an easy vessel to control at this stage, and you'll see here in just a moment what I mean. So we're getting it up. This is nice. We're at about 10, 11, 12 kilometers up, and starting to try turning so that our orientation is facing upwards properly, and you get to see what happens here. I killed the engines because we are going for a spin here, guys. Re-engaging. Nope, not time. Let's see if we can re-engage now and correct that. Almost back on point. Let's let it spin one more time. Keep it around there, engage those thrusters, and see if you can control it. There you go, you've snagged it. We are back under control, at least somewhat. This is super, super touchy at this point. But we still were able to get it up to about the 70 kilometers. We are out of the atmosphere officially right now, and we still haven't even engaged any of our rockets from our actual ship. So this is the moment of truth for sending off all these rockets here on the outer side of our ship. If we can disengage this safely, this is not a bad design. So we're putting up our maneuver and getting ready to separate right here using the last of that fuel. There it goes. Disengage and engage our new rockets. Oh, we bumped, but nothing broke. We bumped, nothing broke. So we may need to put some other separator rockets on there, the Separatrons, to get those out of the way properly and away from our vessel so that no bumping occurs in the future, because that certainly could cause some problems. We've got the bigger rockets on there, and we've swapped the air-breathing engine position for our rocket position and put the air breathers at the back of the vessel, you can see. Unfortunately, I started burning the wrong direction and was like, oh crap, I'm burning totally the wrong direction for getting into orbit, but that's fine. We don't have a heck of a lot of fuel in these things, but, I mean, it's something. We're at about 172 kilometers up, 173 kilometers. We're way out of the atmosphere. Unfortunately, we just aren't able to get that orbital velocity. And it looks like we've also got some piping issues between some of our fuel tanks. So you can see me transferring some fuel to our outer tanks again and re-engaging. Now, I'm not going to try to use all this, because if we're going to bring this in for a landing, if we want any chance of landing it, we're going to need to make sure we have a little fuel in our tanks for our air breathers to come back in for a smooth landing. So we've disengaged. We are going to be shutting down our outer engines and only engaging our air-breathing engines. You can see them there. And coming back in, you can see us falling back into the atmosphere. We're going to position this so that our nose is facing right at this thing. Or at least almost at it. Oh boy. Oh, we lost it. Flipping around at 30 kilometers. That is not a good place to be spinning around right before you hit all this heat here. You can see this is just horrible. This is not what you want to have happen when you are coming back through the atmosphere. Though it was pretty straight up and down, so we cut through that thick atmosphere real fast, and it slowed us down nice and quick. Thankfully, we didn't blow anything up, it looks like. So let's turn on those air breathers. And if you can see what I messed up here and didn't notice, drop it in the comments below. Good luck. It was subtle, and I mean, maybe I just wasn't paying attention because I was freaking out about not being able to control myself, but yeah, it was kind of funny. I notice in a while. You can see us still falling. This thing is just spinning out of control. I cannot get the nose facing our prograde marker anymore at this point. Like, I keep spinning by it, but we can't steady it. And there's good reason for it. I'm sure if I had figured this out earlier, this could be recoverable. But in all honesty, I don't think this ends too badly. It just has a little mark ahead, so you guys know what's coming, sort of. You can see me spinning here in a side spin. This is absolutely probably the worst situation you can be in a plane, is a side spin. You're basically not moving forward, you're dropping, and you're not really getting lift over your wings because they're not moving in a single direction. They are just spinning and cutting in circles. And you're not going to be generating any forward momentum or thrust downward, unfortunately. But right there is where I noticed it. I noticed one of the engines was not heated. So it looks like my hotkey for re-engaging the engines only turned on one of them, and we are at about 5 kilometers above the surface. Now, we've fallen this entire way with one engine. We still have plenty of fuel, so let's activate that second engine right there and see if we can get this thing under control. We do still have RCS, so turning around should help, or make it a little easier with that RCS, giving us a bit extra maneuverability, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get too much luck. We do get it back on point there and almost into position. Looks like, oh, we just lost it again. Spun out. We are at about 2 kilometers up, even shorter distance because that is a sea level measurement, and we are certainly not out at sea. So that mountain is sneaking up on us quickly. We're probably at about 1 kilometer up from the ground. You can see our shadow down there below. We almost get this thing under control again, and we spin it out again. So it's time to release those parachutes and try to save us with just those. If they can do the trick here, they can pretty much do it anywhere. So there you see it. It's got a decent little tilt to it. Unfortunately, a lot of our weight is in the back of the vessel at this point without all the fuel in the front. So we do have a bit of a lean, which isn't good. But we are dropping rather slowly at about 10 kilometers or 10 meters a second. Under 10 meters a second with the air-breathing engines giving us a little extra thrust and our air brakes engaged. So hopefully this should be survivable. We aren't too far from the space center, so that's good. We'll recover a lot of the vessel worth just saved on recovery costs there. So that's good. Coming in, here it is. Is this gonna... Are we gonna make it? Are we gonna make it? You guys probably already know. We're increasing our thrust. We got it down. We get a little bit of forward momentum. Unfortunately, we're just not able to get that nose down. You can see it over on the far left, bottom left corner there. You can see I'm pushing down, but it's just, we can't get it down. We got the things pushing. We blew up our air breather engines, but it looks like that's all that blew up, and we landed on our wheels. So, probably a bit shaky for our pilot, Jebediah, and Gillong? I don't even know. But thank you guys so much for watching. This has been your Captain Mog speaking. If you liked what you saw or enjoyed the video, hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time. Cheers. Hey everybody, your Captain Mog speaking here and giving you a quick update at the end of this video. I'm going to be gone from May 15th to June 15th, which most likely means no videos posted to the channel unless I can find a friend who wants to make some videos during that time. Just wanted to let you guys know there will be a longer video explaining my absence at the end of this week, just before leaving. Take care guys, and we will see you next time. Cheers!